All right, so in our third video, I'm going to continue to build on our examples from the first two videos and start talking about lifecycle functions. So the architect system has the ability to add code to life cycle events for entries for a model. In order to show you an example of this, I'm going to start with a slightly complicated example. Let's say we have a person, and if you'll remember, we had a product, loyalty level, market, and language model before. Let's create a new model and say that a person has a cart. So we'll create a cart model, and let's say that a cart has a total. Keep it pretty simple for now. We won't go with subtotal and total. And then let's say that a cart has the concept of a set of line items. And so we have to make another model. I'm going to call this the line item model. And then let's keep it again very simple. We'll say that a line item has a quantity and it points at a product, like this. And we'll come down to model. We'll say a line item has a quantity and it points at a product. So I think you can see how this would work. We'll come back to our cart model now, and we will add a field called line items. And we'll say this is a model relation field. And we'll point this at line items, and we'll say that you can have multiple line items. So here we are, and then we could say a person has a cart. Yeah. And he can't have multiple carts. Let's say a person has one cart right now. So there we go. By the way, one thing that this can do that comes out of the box with this is a design system where you could, for example, visualize the relationships between your models. And you can, yes, you can edit from here and do everything if you want to design visually. So for example, a person can speak, a person speaks a language and has a loyalty level. These things can all be visualized. But what I wanted to show is that, again, this is a full AI system. And so now we can do things like, let's actually make a cart for a person. You know? And so we're going to go to one of our, person entries. Let's say we're working with Fred, and he has a cart, right? So let's give him a cart. So he likes these products. He has a loyalty level, and he has a cart. Now, we could make this a shared cart, which would mean that more than one person has this cart, but we want this cart to be exclusive to Fred. So we're going to say, we're going to make a cart, and this cart just belongs to Fred. We're not going to put a total here right now, but let's add, just for example's sake, a couple of line items. And again, these are exclusive to Fred, so we're going to say This is a line item. Let's say we have 3 sweaters that he wants to buy. And let's say that he also has 2 tennis shoes. Yeah. And so if you look at the cart, it has 2 line items in it right now. We can add uh, uh, title fields to make this look better, but you can see this as a total right now. And usually you hook this up to some kind of an outside system. But in Architect, you can come to the cart, and this cart has this total field. Just to show really quickly, you could come in here for business. We could have some kind of a cart icon. Yeah. Again, if we come in here, you can give icons to these things, which goes back to our design, where you can see that these icons are reflected everywhere. But coming back to the cart, we're going to add a lifecycle function. So let's create one of these. And it has a Git system under the hood where it can save code and version code. You can upload code if you want to, but the usual way to do this is to have the AI introspect on your system, because the AI understands everything. And so we could say, before creating a cart, before updating a cart, this is when this life cycle function starts, right? I could turn this off and we could say this is only on create, or maybe only after deletes. But let's say on any cart creates or any updates, let's see what the AI understands about the model that we just created, right? And remember, we just made this. And we're going to say, what does the AI say? And it says, well, I've looked at your model chain between person, cart, line items, and products. And it says I could recalculate the total for you from the line items, quantities, and product prices. I could validate the product inventory against the line item quantities. I could update the total when line items are modified. Or you can come down in here and you could describe whatever you wanted this function to do. And then we have a testing function. We have ways to prove this out, and I'll show that to you in a minute. But because I'm being lazy, I could just say, all right, I'm going to recalculate the total from the line item quantities and the product prices. You see this was pretty fast, and he said, I've created a function that automatically calculates the total from line items. And here's what it does. It loops through each line item in the cart. It multiplies the quantity by the product price for each item. It sums everything up to get the total. It also uses context-aware pricing, right? And so let's just save this. And here is our calculate cart total lifecycle function on a cart. You can see when it runs on updates or creates of carts. I can keep this enabled, or I can disable this function if I don't want to run it anymore. And I can come back in here and I can continue to improve or change this function. So I also can see it generated a very simple function in here. I can try it out. We can save tests. We can generate sample data or use existing entries. And it'll also show you all of the executions and how they ran and what the result was if you want to try this out. And this is generally what you would do in an environment like this. And then at some point in the environment section, you would promote these functions up after you've tested them out. So let's see what it does. We're going to have an entry. We're going to have a person. Let's go to here. We have our cart. Aha. So it's already run this function once, and I don't like what it did with its first attempt here. So I'm just going to go right back to the cart function. I'm going to click in here and I'm going to say round up to the nearest cent for the total. Let's just have it fix it real quick. There we go. It says I've updated the function to round up to the nearest cent 2 decimal places. Here's what changed. I'm going to save this. We'll come back. We'll come back to the person. And here we go. Now you've seen that it's adjusted this to this total. If you'd like to see when this fires, it knows when anything down the line changes. And for example, let's go from 3 to 4. So we'll go 4. And we'll come back to the cart, and you can see that it adjusted this. I think maybe we'll come down to tennis shoes. We'll go to 10. That should be, 499. We'll come back to the cart, and now you can see that this total was adjusted. And this will happen now when any changes to any of the line items or the product pricing happens. It'll adjust the total of your cart. Another example of this could be, let's say we go to a language and we have this ISO code and we're worried about people messing this up. We could say, let's go to a lifecycle function for a language entry. You can click in here and we could say, hey, before you create it, before you update it, let's see what the AI thinks here. Okay, we could automatically uppercase the ISO field. We could set a default name from the ISO code. If it's empty, we could validate it that it follows 639 standard format. I like this guy right here. I would have said something like, make this a valid ISO code, right? But it already knew by looking at this. So here we go. We'll save the function. And now it validates it. And if I come back to language, and let's say I create something, and let's say I say blarg, it'll say, listen, I can't save this. This has to be 2 or 3 letters. So let's go with, I don't know, Italian, right? IT. And here we go. Italian, right? Let's actually do something as an experiment. So instead of Italian, I'm going to call it blarg. And we'll have the blarg description. Okay. Let's actually come back to the model. We'll come back to the language. We'll go and add another lifecycle function. Let's say on update, we'll run this one. And we'll say something like, set the language name to the correct language based on ISO code. We'll hit send. The AI will think about it for a minute. There we go. I've created a function that automatically sets the language based on the ISO code. Yeah, and many more. So it saves it. Let's come to entries. We'll come to the language. And there we go. Now it's set Italian for me. This might be a little bit of a contrived example, but it could be pretty powerful for a person. I now want to come to, I don't know, SV, Swedish. There we go, right? So I hope this showed what we can do with lifecycle functions. The next time I will show you context actions, which can run when the context changes.